Yeah, I'm going to go back to simplification, doing less, saying no more often, so that I can focus on the things that truly matter. I look around at a lot of the side gigs that I was trying to do just so that I could get out of all of the financial trouble from the franchise, and recognizing that again they were spreading me too thin. I was getting into that same little rat race, and so really focusing on the things that matter, that need attention, so that I can water the crop that is in front of me rather than trying to deal with everybody else's farms.
Welcome to the True Leadership Podcast, where we sit down with executive leaders to explore what leadership really means through the lens of their stories, their wins, their struggles, their vision, and their lessons along the way. I'm Ty Hammond, founder of One Mountain Leadership and creator of the True Leadership Approach, an awareness-based path that helps leaders shift their focus from what to do about their problems to how to grow from them. Whether you're just stepping into leadership or are well-seasoned and at the top of your game, your potential won't be realized following someone else's script, but you can draw insights from their stories and turn it into wisdom by putting it into practice in your own life.
Welcome to the True Leadership Podcast, where we explore the essence of leadership beyond tactics and performance by sitting down with executives to hear what matters most to them. I'm your host, Jessy James, and today's guest is Matt Holzmann. Matt is a former Microsoft executive and U.S. Marine Corps combat veteran with over 20 years of experience driving enterprise cloud growth through strategic partnerships and ecosystem development. As Senior Director of Client Acquisitions and Partnerships at Elevate 365, he helps North American partners accelerate revenue through no-code automation, SaaS innovation, and AI-enhanced test automation. Matt has negotiated multi-million-dollar cloud contracts and built go-to-market programs that connect technology, people, and purpose. Known for his empathy, precision, and mission-first leadership, he thrives at the intersection of complex technology and strategic growth, turning partnerships into engines of transformation and measurable business impact. Matt, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast today.
And it's an absolute pleasure to be here, Jessy. Thank you so much for that incredible introduction. I never would have described myself that way, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Wonderful. I'm glad we did you justice.
More than that. So thanks to you and the True Leadership team. Thank you.
Matt, I believe that who we are as leaders is something that grows over time. How we show up as leaders at work, at our, with our friends and family, really starts taking shape early in life. I'm curious, who is someone from your early life or even an early experience that shaped the kind of leader that you are today?
Yeah, I think that as leaders, we get influenced by lots of different things. And so I would say in the earliest days, it was my mother. The incredible work ethic that she had was, truly phenomenal. And I can remember being picked up from after school, going back to the office and stuffing envelopes for her and doing all this stuff so that she could get her business going when she was very early in career. And the flip side of that is that there's also a shadow about doing too much work sometimes, right? Then I think about my grandfather and the humility that he had and just what a good man he was. And he also came from a generation that was, had some challenges as well. So, he wasn't a perfect human. And then I think about a leader that I worked under in college, a gentleman by the name of Chris Capoli. And he taught me how to build a team based on diversity of background and thought that ultimately led to a better, more cohesive team that could ultimately serve the student body better. When we were at the travel and recreation program, we had leaders for, basically we would lead these outdoor trips, rock climbing, backpacking, mountain biking, you name it. And the leaders that we had tended to be very homogenous. And we had this vision to have a much bigger program that was more inclusive of more of the student body. And ultimately that led us to doing an exercise with the true colors and kind of personality test, and then understanding what we were as an organization but also what we wanted to become. And then our interviews started to integrate that true colors format so that we could get this more well-rounded organization.
Mm-hmm.
And that led us to do some really incredible things. And the growth was, I didn't get to see all of it. Unfortunately, I did graduate too soon, it felt. But I could see that we were creating the foundation for something that was much better. And,
Yeah.
looking back on it now, they've done some amazing things.
Yeah. That's wonderful to have so many people who've influenced you. And I'm curious, how did these people really inform who you are as a leader today?
Yeah, I mean, again, my mom, I think about just the incredible work ethic that she, kind of built into me as a young child. It was served me very well in the Marine Corps. I was willing to go harder than anybody else. Graduated at the top of my class in my comm school, and nearly graduated top of the class in boot camp, so on and so forth. So it made me strive. I went to boot camp much later than most people. I'm 28 and still had the second highest physical fitness test, even though the other kids had just gotten out of PE 5 minutes before boot camp, and here I was much older, 10 years older than they were. And so that, I think that work ethic, really persevering through things, the tough things. My mom was a financial consultant in the early 80s in the Deep South, and she was frankly a quota hire that I think they wanted to wash out, but she stuck it out. And so seeing that grit and that perseverance, her resilience, that stuck with me. And then I think, again, about my grandfather, he got to work with some of the most amazing people like Roger Penske and some amazing names, but he was so humble about it. He worked on some of the earliest radar systems in the United States, and it was like no big deal. It was just part of what he did. And then, yeah, I just think that all of those pieces together came together in a nice little gumbo, and ultimately led me to work very hard through over time, and then be probably too humble about some things. Again, that intro that you had, like, almost made me feel guilty.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
In this podcast, we're exploring the essence of leadership, right? True leadership. And of course, it tends to mean different things to different people. What does true leadership mean to you? What, in your perspective, makes a true leader from your experience?
For me, it's supporting others on the journey towards a vision, not only as an organization, but their personal vision, right? I think about when we go back to the Marine Corps, certainly we had a mission that we were on, but as one of those older Marines, I had 3 careers before I went in the Marine Corps, and wanted to make sure that I was helping young Marines understand finances and investing, and so they had something more than a Dodge Charger to leave the Marine Corps with. There were several that I taught how to invest, taught them how to use their TSP, which is the government equivalent of a 401k, and taught them the importance of that. And they were able to look up to somebody that was, they called me Grand Old Man of the Marine Corps because I was so much older than they were. And I was able to help them, realize some things and set them up for when they did get out. So that's one way I think about that. When I think about how I worked with that same concept at Microsoft, I loved being a mentor to incoming technical account managers and things like that, and helping them learn the ropes, get up to speed not only in the role, but understand how to use the network that was available to them through this massive organization that was Microsoft, and pull the right people from support or product group, or this technologist that knew this specific thing, so that they could get the best for their clients, helping them understand how to put those pieces together. I think that one of the strengths that I do have is being able to kind of put puzzle pieces together that maybe other people don't see. And so helping my mentees see how to put the puzzle pieces together for their own puzzle, and then where that might help them in building their career, finding them the right mentors beyond myself for the next step. That was something that I absolutely loved doing. And so I think that it's one thing to achieve something as a team that is great for whatever organization that you're on. And I believe truly that if you're not helping the person become a better person, then you're not really doing your job as a leader.
Yeah, I love that. Life and leadership is a path shaped by fundamental turning points that we encounter along the way. Can you share a time when you realized that your way of leading or living no longer met the demands of your work and life and growth was needed?
Yeah, a very recent and pretty painful experience. A few years ago, I purchased a franchise. The idea was to be an absentee owner and have this thing just making money so I could retire early and have time and financial freedom. Unfortunately, it did not work out that way. I learned that to be an owner, there's a lot of responsibility in that. And in trying to hold down a full-time tech job and also be an owner of a home services company, it was a little bit too demanding of my time and my attention, which ultimately led me to the very painful experience of realizing how spread thin I was, that I wasn't able to lead in my own family, and the pain of how much not only money was lost, really the time that I lost with my family during some really crucial years, middle school, early high school for my daughter. And so I think that was an experience that it helped me get more focused on the importance of the life that I do have and this family that I've got for such a short period of time until our daughter goes off to college or whatever she chooses to do as an adult. And so, yeah, it made very clear. It was again a very painful experience, but it made very clear what really is important in this
Yeah,
short life that we get to live.
and I just want to dive a little deeper into that. What did
Yeah.
you have to outgrow or let go of in order to kind of grow beyond that?
Yeah. Um, there was a lot that I have consistently tied my identity to jobs or roles that were external to me. So really a sense of self-worth that is more internal. That's the thing that I've been working on for the last, we'll call it 4 years. It's been a journey that I think that the franchise helped me again see that my self-worth isn't tied into the money I'm making, right, or the titles that I've got, but rather how I show up as a human on this planet, and how I'm spending quality time with the people that I love.
And I'm curious, I mean, what impact is that, that realization, that deep realization have on you in terms of how you lead today?
Yeah, I it's a good one. I see it as simplification.
Mm.
Like I think the biggest take home for me was that doing too much resulted in you know losing a lot. And again, it wasn't just the financial piece. It was very much, we nearly lost our house. I nearly lost my marriage, right? And so all of that, I think understanding what to really prioritize, the important things to prioritize rather than the the flashy bits, the titles, the money. Again, focusing on what really matters, which were the relationships.
And Matt, thinking about your journey over the past few years, what's been the most valuable investment that you've made in yourself for your own growth?
Yeah, this will definitely be outside of the norm, but I would say that psychedelic assisted therapy and investment in personal development. I did an intensive, at the almost at the start of when all of that stuff happened, that I think woke me up to some things that I was not really doing in my life really are the more important things. Ways that I wasn't showing up as a husband and father because of the time that I wasn't giving at home. But then also that reflected in the ways that I had stopped giving back to the employees really in my life as well, the teams. I had gotten much more focused when I was in those jobs for Microsoft as more of an individual contributor, and it kind of lost that again time and focus on mentoring people. So that kind of was the start, and then there was a lot more personal development that has followed and a lot of integration work that really brought me back to wanting to lead with, not only creating a safe space for people, but leading with kindness and love.
Love that. Kindness and love, yeah.
Yeah.
And just getting in touch with that aspect of one's own leadership style is such a big learning. So appreciate you sharing that. What's your vision for your leadership, your legacy, or the impact that you want to have in the years ahead?
Yeah, so kindness and safety keep coming up for me. Those are two big words. I want to make sure that I am staying grounded and leading, being kind in how I lead. In the Marine Corps, there were lots of examples of very tough people that they're shouting things at you, but there were also some incredibly kind leaders. I think about, at the time, he was Gunnery Sergeant David Wilson. Now he's Sergeant Major Wilson. Frankly, I'll put my vote in for him to be Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps one of these days. Hopefully the Commandant hears this. Yeah, he could be tough as nails, but he also led with kindness. He really wanted to understand what was going on with the Marines so he could help them get through whatever the challenge was. And then when I think about my own impact on that, first and foremost, I want to make sure that we support our daughter in becoming a courageous and capable adult that goes into the world confidently before she goes and leaves the nest. So that to me is the most important impact that we could possibly have, myself and my wife. And, when I think about the team that I just joined here at Elevate 365, I want to make sure that we build an absolutely amazing, healthy, functioning team that happens to also exceed all of the business expectations. What I've come to find about the Dynamics 365 community is that it's almost like a family. And so what I value about this particular company too is that they have decades of experience within this particular niche, and I want to make sure that when I show up as a leader that we are kind of adding to that family and nurturing people as part of this community, not just people that are selling software.
Got it. And I'm curious, as you talk about being more kind and loving, and achieving, these things like working with your daughter to make her the best person that she could be, or getting the best out of your teams and helping Elevate 365 grow. What are the ways that you most need to personally grow and develop to realize this vision?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to simplification, doing less, saying no more often so that I can focus on the things that truly matter. I look around at a lot of the side gigs that I was trying to do just so that I could get out of all of the financial trouble from the franchise, and recognizing that, again, they were spreading me too thin. I was getting into that same little rat race. And so really focusing on the things that matter, that need attention, so that I can water the crop that is in front of me rather than trying to deal with everybody else's farms.
Yeah,
So,
love it.
yeah.
I mean, you're really talking about sort of that laser sharp focus, channelizing your energy.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. The path to leadership is determined by where and how we meet our growing edge. Where do you feel most tested right now? Like, what challenges are really stretching you the most in leadership and in life?
Yeah, so I think that when I looked at leadership earlier on in my life, I've looked at it as something that you had to be a certain way. You had to have a certain charisma or be the popular person or whatever. And that made me oftentimes what I coined as a reluctant leader. There's actually somebody I interviewed with at Microsoft years ago, Jim Lee, where this reluctant leader concept came up. I noticed, whether it was rowing, student senate, there were all these ways that I was kind of pulled into leadership roles that I didn't necessarily want. One of my first jobs out of college, I got pulled into a management role that I didn't necessarily want. I just wanted to ski and things like that in my free time. And people recognize things that I didn't recognize in myself, right? And so I think that there's something about that reluctance that I need to just kind of drop, that I need to recognize the strengths that I do have and the gifts that I can offer to the world, own that, and then ultimately give back to folks what I've been through, what I've learned, and figure out how to take that wisdom and apply it to the teams that I'm building right now, and the things that we're trying to do, not only my wife and I as parents, but then what I'm trying to do with this new family that I've joined at Elevate 365.
Yeah. And as you think about all of that, are there areas about yourself that you feel, gosh, that's a real growing edge? I mean, I'm really,
Yeah,
I'm feeling a little
confidence.
challenged.
Yeah, it's the confidence in knowing, like, not only who I am, but what I have to offer. I think that, even when that intro came in, there was a level of shame or guilt hearing good things about me, right?
Yeah.
And just owning that. And yes, I have done these things. I've yes, been to combat and survived that. I've signed some massive contracts while I was at Microsoft. I've done some really amazing things in my life. I've, enabled I think about the Department of Interior, they have a group called the National Interagency Fire Center, and we help them reduce their reporting time by months, right? I think about the point of sale system at the National Park System or my National Park Service that I get lines through faster, which is a safety issue, right? And it's also a guest enjoyment issue. So I've done some really, really cool things in all sorts of different places. I just need to recognize that in myself.
Wonderful. Yeah. It's about really recognizing your greatness, your superpowers, right? Acknowledging.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Acknowledging. I again, hesitant to say greatness.
Yeah. So this last question is more of an invitation. We'd love for you to leave our listeners with something to carry forward, right? So you have the time and the space here to offer to our listeners whatever it is that's most in your heart and mind, to share straight from your heart, anything at all. Take your time. The floor is yours.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I've been thinking about this one a lot, and I appreciate that y'all gave us the questions ahead of time just to get familiar with what might be coming. The state of the world right now is really it's really rough. My wife is a naturalized citizen. She's Filipina, and when I think about what the promise of this country has been and how challenged that is today, I really think to something that Martin Luther King said: darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. And I've talked a lot about kindness and love, and I think that as a culture and as a country, America has lost a lot of that. And I would beg of our fellow citizens to open their hearts, to be more kind to our fellow citizens, and let's rebuild this country and help this world be a better place.
On that incredibly positive note, Matt, I really appreciate the wisdom that you've shared here today with me. I've gotten so much out of it, so many nuggets. We covered so much ground, and I'm sure that whoever is listening will just benefit equally from what you've shared. Thank you so much for being on the True Leadership Podcast.
Thank you, Jessy. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of the True Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this to catch future episodes. This conversation was brought to you by One Mountain Leadership, where we help leaders grow the capacity, confidence, and presence of true leadership through the True Leadership approach. To learn more about the approach, our offerings, our community, and how we can help you realize your potential in both leadership and in life, visit us at onemountainleadership.com.